Hello friends, welcome back to this online lecture series on earthquake resistant design of structures. Now, as you are well aware, in the previous two lectures we have been discussing about the two features that if these two features are present in the reinforced concrete building, then it is going to hamper the performance of this building under the effect of lateral loads, and that is the presence of open ground story, and second was the presence of short columns, right? So we have seen the behavior of the building in that particular case and the solution also we have discussed. In today's lecture, we are going to discuss regarding one earthquake resistant feature, that if this particular feature is introduced in the building, then as a result of this presence of this feature, the performance of the reinforced concrete building can be enhanced to a great extent. That is, I am talking about shear wall, right? So let us start today's discussion, where we will be talking about the purpose of shear wall, the behavior of the shear wall, the configuration of the shear wall, and the criteria for ductile detailing of shear wall. So let us start today's session with the understanding of what is basically a shear wall. So as you can see in the figure behind me, shear walls are basically the RCC plate like elements that are present in the building along with the other structural elements, that is the beam, column and the slabs, right? Now these walls, as you can see in the figure, they start from the foundation level and go up to the top of the building, that is to the last floor of the terrace level, right? Now the thickness of this wall can be as minimum as 125 mm to 150 mm also, and maximum thickness can go up to 400 to 450 mm also. But the purpose of these walls is to carry the lateral load forces from the top of the building and then transfer these forces to the foundation. So it is an important task that this RCC element is going to perform, and that is why we can say that shear walls are nothing but basically wide vertical oriented beams through which the transfer of lateral forces takes from the slab level to the foundation level. So as you can see in the figure, that one shear wall is shown over here. There you can see the width of the particular element is very large as compared to that of the width of the column. So that is why it can be said that it is a wider cross section. Same thing, at the same time it is vertically oriented. So that is why it is known as vertically oriented large beams, right? So usually the beams are horizontally oriented, but it is going to perform the function similar to that of a beam, but these beams are going to be vertically oriented, right? And lastly, it is necessary that in order to ensure that good performance of the building is achieved through these elements, the shear walls should be distributed evenly in plan, and they should be provided along both the principal axes, right? So now if you look at the figure behind me, two things are given. First is the plan of the building, and second is the three-dimensional figure or three-dimensional view of a particular G+2 building, right? So as you can see, first I was talking about the location of the shear wall in the plan. So the shear walls are provided at the corners, that is the four shear walls are provided, and secondly is the three-dimensional view of this particular building, where the shear walls can be seen going along the height of the building, which we have discussed as the vertically oriented horizontal beams, vertically oriented beams which are going to help in the transfer of forces. Next we talk about the advantage, that is we have seen that this is an important component, right? But what is the advantage of providing this particular type of element in the building, or what is the purpose of introducing this type of element in the building? Now in case of masonry buildings, as we have seen earlier, that based on the characteristics of the building, we have already seen that the performance of the masonry building was good or bad depending upon certain features that were introduced in the building. Similarly here also, the past earthquakes have suggested that if a reinforced concrete building which is properly designed and detailed with the presence of shear walls, then the performance of these buildings have always been better in case of severe ground shaking, and that is why it is going to be an added advantage by introducing the shear wall in the performance of the reinforced concrete building. Secondly, these shear walls are easy to construct. Why? Because the detailing of this reinforcement is very simple, that is horizontal and vertical reinforcement have to be provided at certain distances, and it is going to be a very straightforward process which can be easily implemented on site. So as a result of that, the construction complexity is also greatly reduced, and that is why we can say that it is easy to implement on this site. And lastly, if you talk about it from the performance point of view or the stability point of view, then as we have discussed, it is going to enhance the performance. How it is going to enhance the performance? That is, it is going to be effective in nature, both in terms of reducing the construction cost and at the same time it is going to be effective in controlling the damage that is likely to take place under the effect of severe shaking. That is, large displacement will be avoided. When large displacement will be avoided, then as a result of that, the tension and compression forces that are going to be transferred to the adjacent elements are going to be less, right? So as a result of that, what is going to happen, that the structural elements and the non-structural elements are going to be less stress, and when they are going to be less stress, then as a result of that, the chances of failure or damage in the structure is going to be greatly reduced. And when this is reduced, then we can say that the performance and the serviceability criteria of the building is going to be satisfied to a very great extent, right? So we have two figures here. In the first figure, you can see that the elevation of a building with shear wall is shown, and in the second figure, the moment resisting frame is shown. Now, as I have discussed, what is the advantage, that in case of shear wall buildings where the shear wall is provided, you can see that the large lateral deformation is going to be controlled to a very great extent due to the increased stiffness of the wall. And due to this increased stiffness, the displacement is going to greatly be reduced. And if you compare the same with the moment resisting frame where only columns are present and beams are present, then in that case large deformation of the structure is going to be there, which is going to be on pretty much higher side as compared to that of the shear wall. So that is why the shear wall is going to be effective in nature, and at the same time it is going to add stability to the structure as well. Right. Next, we talk about the architectural features of shear wall, because basically it is a wall which is going to be vertically oriented, right? So when it is going to be vertically oriented, the questions regarding whether we can achieve a particular type of elevation or not, that always remains in the mind. For example, if it is a masonry building, then we are pretty much okay that we can provide sufficient amount of door openings, we can provide the window openings, nothing is to be cross-checked over there. But when you talk about shear walls, where the reinforced concrete element is going to be there, then this question arises that what is the type of opening that we provide, what is the location of the opening that we can have. So the thing that is there is that the door and window openings both can be provided in case of shear walls also. But the size of these openings has to be limited. Why it has to be limited? So that the transfer of forces is not interrupted from the floor level to the foundation level, and the smooth transfer continues. If this criteria is satisfied, then sufficient amount of openings can be provided along the profile of the shear wall. Same times, the other thing that is to be kept in mind is that these openings that are going to be provided in the walls have to be symmetric in nature, right? So unevenness whenever will be there in the structure, then as a result of that, the unnecessary stresses are going to be developed. So as a result of that, another criteria to be kept in mind is that first criteria is the size of the opening should be limited. Secondly, they should be distributed symmetrically along the height of the wall. Then the third criteria, if we talk about, then as you can see in the figure, just like in case of masonry buildings in the last lecture we have seen, that in order to ensure that the sufficient amount or continuous same lateral strength and stiffness is available throughout the height of the building, we saw that if masonry infill walls criteria is considered, and if the height of the masonry infill wall is continuity of the masonry infill wall along the height is maintained, then as a result of that, the performance of the building is enhanced. Similarly, same concept is applied here in case of shear wall also, where you can see two figures, where in first case, the shear wall is starting from the ground level and it is terminating at the second floor level. And in the second figure, the shear wall is starting from the ground level and it is extending up to the top of the building. So what is going to be happening? In the first case, the discontinuity is there. In the second case, the continuity is there. So if you look at it from the good practice point of view, which is going to enhance the performance of the building and make sure that the forces are evenly distributed and safely reaching the foundation, then in that case, the second option, that is the building, the height of the wall, which is going to be throughout the height of the building, it is going to be a preferable case, right? So that is also another architectural criteria that needs to be kept. And lastly, these elements have to be distributed in plan also evenly. That also we will see in the next figure, and their location also we will discuss in the next figure, right? So as you can see, two figures are shown. In the first figure, the unsymmetric distribution of the shear wall is shown. In the second figure, the even distribution of the shear wall is shown, right? Or the symmetric distribution of the shear wall is shown. So if I talk about the first figure, then you can see that three shear walls are provided, but neither of these three shear walls are symmetric about any of the axis, that is x-axis or y-axis. That is going to be the principal axis through which the forces are going to be applied, right? So when this type of thing is going to be there, then as a result of that, what is going to happen is that the CG of mass and CG of the floor and the CG of the stiffness is not going to match. And when that is not going to happen, then as a result of that, the stiffness is going to be, center of stiffness is going to be oriented towards the left side, and as a result of that, eccentricity is likely to be developed. And as we have seen, whenever eccentricity comes into picture, then twisting of the floor is likely to take place, and that is why it is not advisable. Whereas the other figure is the one where 4 shear walls are shown. That is, 2 shear walls are provided in the x direction and 2 directions are provided in the y direction. So if I talk about the symmetry, then what is happening is that the walls that are provided along the horizontal direction, these walls are going to be symmetric about the x-axis, right? And if I talk about the vertical walls, then I can say that these walls are going to be symmetric about the y-axis. So whenever the horizontal forces will be applied to this particular plan, then you can see that since the shear walls are provided at all the 4 corners in all the 4 bays, then as a result of that, the distribution or the movement of the building will be in one particular direction only. That is, if the force is applied in x direction, then maximum distribution will be along x direction. If the force is applied y direction, then maximum movement will be along y direction. So we can say that the twisting is going to be eliminated if symmetric distribution of the shear wall is done in the plan. And the other important aspect that has to be noted over here is that the shear walls are provided at the periphery of the building. So whenever the buildings are going to be provided at the periphery of the building, then as a result of that, this entire floor is going to act together as a single unit, and as a result of that, what is going to happen is that the resistance to twisting will be available. However, certain times we see that there are lift cores in the buildings, and these lift cores are located at the center of the floor. So if you are going to use these walls that are going to be around the lift core as RCC wall or shear walls, then in that case what is going to happen is that the stiffness will be available, but whenever the forces will be applied, then as a result of that, the plan is going to rotate about a particular axis, that is either the x-axis or either the y-axis. And whenever the rotation starts, then as a result of that, we can say that the twisting has taken place. So it is preferred that the shear walls have to be provided at the external periphery and not towards the central core of the building. And at the same time, the shear walls should be placed symmetrically about the axis and in both the directions. That is also an important criteria. Next, we try to understand the role of this shear wall, or what is the exactly how this shear wall perform when they are going to present in the building. That is, most of the RCC buildings are also going to have shear walls and columns both, right, which is known as the dual structural system. So in case of dual structural system, what is going to happen is that the gravity load is going to be carried by the columns and the lateral load is going to be purely carried by the shear walls, right? Now when shear walls are going to carry large amount of lateral force, then it is going to be that since the geometry of the shear wall is such that as a result of the geometry, the stiffness and the lateral strength of the shear wall is going to be large. And when the stiffness and the strength is going to be large, as a result of that, the displacement will be controlled to a great extent, and as a result of that, it is going to attract large amount of lateral forces. And as we have discussed, whenever large amount of lateral forces will be there, then as a result of that, the element will be governing in the shear design. So here also, in case of good performance of the shear wall, it is necessary that the shear criteria of the building must be satisfied, or the shear criteria of the shear wall must be satisfied. And the other thing that happens is that whenever these elements are going to be vertically oriented and the force is going to apply at the top of the building. So whenever the force will be applied at the top of the building, then as a result of that, let us say that if this is my building and this is how the force is going to apply, then as a result of that, what is going to happen is that the building is going to move like this. When the building is going to move like this, then you can observe over here that the building has lost contact from the ground at the ground level. That is, the upliftment of the building or upliftment of the foundation is taking place. That is what I can say, right? So, and when the force is going to act from the other direction, then in that case also again what is going to happen is that the building is going to lose contact from the ground. That is, the foundation upliftment is likely to be possible. So as a result of that, we can say that since the stiffness and the strength is large, it is going to attract large amount of lateral forces. And when it is going to attract large amount of lateral forces, then two types of things are going to happen. First is the shear capacity should be sufficient enough, and second, resistance to uplift forces has to be sufficient enough. So as a result of that, the foundation has to be checked for sliding and overturning without fail when you are designing the foundation for a particular shear wall. And same thing as we have seen in the earlier cases also, that the distribution of horizontal forces, when it is done, then the base shear, maximum base shear will be accumulated towards the ground story and minimum base shear value will be accumulated towards the top, right? So the ground story is going to have higher percentage of reinforcement in case of shear walls as well. Then we talk about the ductile detailing. So as we have seen earlier that just like all other elements, if proper detailing of the element is done, then the ductile nature of the element can be achieved, right? So Just like in case of beams and columns, we have seen that we always prefer the ductile behavior rather than the shear failure or the flexural failure. Right? So similarly, in case of shear walls also, we would like the ductile behavior to happen. And for that to happen, there are certain criteria. First is the overall geometry of the wall. Second criteria is the thickness of the wall. Third, the type of reinforcement and the arrangement of reinforcement. And lastly, the connection with the neighboring elements. These four criteria are going to decide whether the ductility of the building can be enhanced or not. If these four things are done properly, then as a result of that, we can say that the ductility of the wall is going to be enhanced to a great extent. And lastly, the Indian Standard Code IS 13920-2016 is giving the guideline for ductile detailing of shear walls as well. As you can see in the figure over, two types of reinforcement are going to be there in majority. First is the horizontal reinforcement, second is the vertical reinforcement. In both the cases, the spacing is mentioned that the maximum spacing should not be more than length of the wall divided by 5 or thickness of the wall or 450 mm. That is, if my length of the wall is 5 meter, there 5000 divided by 5 is equal to 1000, or the thickness of the wall, which is, let us say my thickness is 200 mm, so 200 mm, and lastly is the 450. So that is why we can say that the maximum spacing that is to be there, that can be says, usually the practice is that maximum spacing not more than 200 mm should be provided in case of shear walls. And lastly, we have talked about the upliftment or losing the contact with the ground. So as a result of that, proper anchorage of these vertical bars into the foundation is also going to play a very critical role as well. So that also the guideline is given by IS 13920. Lastly, we look at the different geometries of shear wall. Now these shear walls are usually oblong in shape, that is, the width is less as compared to the other dimension. It is very less, right? So most of the times the type of geometry is a rectangular geometry. But rectangular geometry is a common geometry, but apart from that, you can also have L shape, you can have U shape, you can have C shape of shear walls. For example, as I have given the example of lift walls, so in case of lift wall, the entire core of the lift can be used as a shear wall. And if that is happening, then it can be used as an inverted U or C shape or an E shape as well, right? However, the location and the even distribution is going to be a very critical element in enhancing the performance of the building as compared to the location of the shear wall. And lastly, we talk about the reinforcement criteria. So IS 13920 is telling that the minimum reinforcement is to be provided in shear walls is 0.25% of the gross cross-sectional area, both in the horizontal and the vertical direction, right? And this vertical reinforcement should be evenly distributed across both the faces of the shear wall. As you can see in the figure, the phenomena that I have explained is that whenever the horizontal force is going to be applied, the face on which the force is applied is going to be under tension, and the opposite face is going to be under compression. Similarly, if the force is applied from here, then the face on which the force is applied is going to be on tension, the other face is going to be on the compression side. So that thing is going to happen. As a result of that, the sliding and the overturning will come into picture. And secondly, the code is telling that in order to enhance the performance or stability of the shear walls due to the sliding and overturning, IS 13920 is suggesting the provision of boundary elements at the corners of the shear walls. Now, what is these boundary elements? Boundary elements are basically nothing but columns that you provide at the end of the shear wall, right? Now, why these are going to happen is that because the overturning is going to be there, so tension compression phase is going to be keep on changing due to the reversal of stresses. So as a result of that, the corners of the shear wall will be very stressed. So in order to reduce the stress, the code is suggesting the provision of boundary elements. And as we know that the pattern of IS 13920 is that whenever the element is going to be stressed, then IS 13920 is telling that special confinement reinforcement should be provided in that particular element. So as you can see over here, the elevation of a shear wall with boundary element is shown, where the boundary element is provided on the two corners of the shear wall. And as you can see in the figure, in both the boundary elements, special confinement reinforcement is provided throughout the height of the shear wall. And what is the other advantage is that the stability is going to increase, and at the same time the thickness of the shear wall can be reduced. As you can see in the figure over here, in the first figure, the condition is shown where the uniform thickness of the shear wall is provided, and in the second case, the reduced thickness of the shear wall with the increased size of the boundary element is shown. So it is going to help us in providing special confinement reinforcement at the corners. At the same time, the anchorage of shear wall reinforcement in the boundary element is also shown, which is considered to be a good practice from detailing point of view for better performance of the building. So that is all regarding the different criteria and the behavior of shear wall when present in the reinforced concrete building. I hope you have enjoyed today's lecture. Stay tuned for the further lecture series where we will be discussing some other important earthquake resistance